my short presentation will focus on the traditional and, in my opinion, the best foods in Wales. For some background information, I have lived in Wales all my life and love all things food. For the purpose of the talk, I've separated some traditional dishes into two sections, sweet and savoury. So one savoury option includes cawl. It's like a broth consistency, which is enjoyed usually on a cold winter's day. This dish is frequently made with lamb, which is a main source of meat in Wales. Welsh sheep became famous for the sweetness of their meat, and their wool could be used in the textile industry. Cawl can be regarded as Wales's national dish. Dating back to the 11th century, originally it was a simple broth of meat and vegetables, which would be cooked slowly over the course of the day whilst the family was out working in the fields. A vegetable that can be added is leek. Leeks are seen as a symbol of Wales and are associated with St. David, who is the patron saint of Wales. This is because St. David, a monk, before a battle in the 6th century, convinced Welsh soldiers to fasten leeks onto their helmet to be able to tell friend from foe. This is typically why on St. David's Day, celebrated each year, both leeks and daffodils are visible. Another dish is called lava bread, which is made from cooked seaweed picked from the Welsh coastline. It is therefore a salty but refreshing taste. The history behind such a mundane food is the cost. Many miners from South Wales would often eat this as a source of energy for breakfast, as these Welsh families weren't paid well, and the abundance of seaweed on Welsh beaches made for a cheap snack. Some sweet dishes that are at the centre of Welsh tradition include the following. The first being a bara brith, commonly translated as speckled bread, which is a traditional fruit cake with a unique flavour which I frequently make for my family. One can eat this either hot or cold. However, the main debate is whether butter should be spread onto a slice of bara brith or not. A very hot topic in my family. Another sweet treat one has to try if visiting Wales is the famous Welsh cake, which, to explain easily, is like an English scone but much nicer. The historical reasoning behind the Welsh cake is because once upon a time, Wales was known as the largest producer of coal. The men would go off to the coal mines with their pre-made lunch, which would typically include Welsh cakes, as they could be stored dried and a very good source of energy. And nowadays, however, these sweet treats are served with afternoon tea. I hope you enjoyed my presentation and has helped aid your knowledge surrounding traditional Welsh foods.
So I'm doing a presentation on British traditional foods. If you don't know, my name is Shannon Chong and I'm a first year psychology student at the University of Liverpool. So I've lived in Manchester my whole life, and Manchester's in the north of England, just for references. So I'm going to give just a few British foods that are classed as quite traditional. So I'm just doing a list of them. So I'll introduce you to fish and chips, otherwise known as a chippy tea up north, afternoon tea, a cup of tea, or a brew, which is what is also known as up north, shepherd's pie and cottage pie, Eton mess, a Sunday roast, and the English breakfast. So first of all, the classic fish and chips. It's also known as a chippy tea up north, and it basically is comprised of a battered cod or haddock that is deep fried, and it's served with deep fried potato chunks or wedges. And I say wedges / chunks because traditionally British chips are a lot thicker than the classic American French fries, which are a lot thinner. And fish and chips is often served with salt and vinegar, curry, gravy, mushy peas, and is often combined with various pies or steak and kidney pudding. And you can buy them at fish and chip shops, which are also known as chippy, which is why it's called a chippy tea. Additionally, you can also have an afternoon tea, which was historically a lighter meal for the upper classes around 4 p.m. in between the big meals. And the foundation, I guess you could call it, of an afternoon tea comprises of tea, scones, clotted cream, sandwiches cut into small bites, such as which are called fingers, and cakes. And a traditional cake that is often included in British afternoon tea is called Battenberg, which is, I'm not sure if you can see my arrow, but it's the little pink and yellow cake on the picture on the left. And that's basically pink and yellow squares of almond cake wrapped in marzipan. I believe it had an origin in Germany though. So I guess it's up for debate whether that's actually traditionally British or not. And then moving on to a cup of tea / a brew, as it's known in the North. Again, this is quite a classic symbol of Britain, if you will. And it's basically a black tea with milk, which is not typically how it's consumed in other parts of the world. I know when I brought my friend over, she's from Korea, and essentially I tried to make her a brew, and she was very confused at the fact that I was adding milk into it. But a cup of tea or a brew can be served with sugar, and what's known as a builder's brew is a very strong cup of tea with very little milk. And a big part of the cup of tea debate is how strong you like your tea. So I've included a color chart as well, because everyone likes their cup of tea to be different strengths and different amounts of milk in it. I would personally go for burnt toffee, which I guess you could class that as a builder's brew. Moving on, shepherd's pie / cottage pie. So essentially a shepherd's pie or a cottage pie is ground meat with onions, carrots and peas, and a crust on top made out of mashed potato. The difference between a shepherd's pie and a cottage pie is that shepherd's pie is made out of ground lamb meat, but whilst cottage pie is made out of ground beef. And then moving on to Eton Mess, this is traditionally a dessert. This originated from Eton College, which is quite a prestigious school. And it's essentially crushed meringue mixed with strawberries and cream. A meringue, if you weren't too sure, is baked, whipped, eggs whites, and sugar. And then Sunday roast. So this is, again, quite a well-known British meal. And the foundations for a typical Sunday roast is roast meat, potatoes, vegetables, Yorkshire pudding, stuffing, and gravy. So the roast meat can change, it can differ depending on what's available. So for normal Sunday roasts, it's often chicken, beef, lamb, or pork, but on special occasions such as Christmas, it can be turkey or goose. Often potatoes are served with it. It's typically roast potatoes, but they can also be mashed as well, I guess, to save time. Vegetables are also quite a key part of it, and the vegetables can be peas, carrots, parsnips, and broccoli, but essentially just can be any type of vegetable you prefer. And a Yorkshire pudding is the circular, on the picture in the middle, the whole like circular, I guess, bowl, if you could call it that, is a Yorkshire pudding, a very large one, in fact. And it's just essentially baked batter. And stuffing is also included, which is quite controversial, I guess you could say. A lot of people don't like it, and it's essentially bread stuffed with herbs. And then lastly, English breakfast. Again, it's a very classic British meal, I guess you could say. It's quite well known. And the foundation for an English breakfast is bacon, eggs, baked beans, black pudding, tomatoes, and mushrooms. And black pudding, again, is quite controversial, if you will. Not many people like it, since it's pork / beef blood mixed with oats / suet to form a sausage. And I've included a close-up picture of a black pudding just so you can have a look.
All right. So I was just saying, I have something very special for us from Africa, and to be precise, from Nigeria, because Nigeria is full of diverse cultural group. However, there are one or two things that unite us together, and I think food is one of those things. Like, we can come together to, share from this particular meal in every occasion that you're privileged to attend. So just for the purpose of this presentation, my name is Binta, and Binta Mide, to be precise. I'm from University of Dundee. I'm studying MSc International Human Resource Management. So this is what jollof rice looks like. And then let's go down to the instructions how to prepare it. That's another, combination of jollof rice. Here you have jollof rice with grapes and, peppered meat. It can be peppered chicken or peppered beef, and you have a bit of plantain oftentimes, served together, when you're serving this delicious jollof rice. Yeah, this is the ingredient. You probably would have to go for 4 cups of rice, and 4 teaspoons of oil, pepper, if you take pepper, a medium-sized tomatoes, and of course onions, because onions sort of, gives food great taste and great garnishing. Yeah. Ingredients continue. So we also make use of curry powder. We make use of thyme powder. Thyme, not a powder, sorry. Then we make use of butter, because butter is what you will use, to give it that nice, shiny look. Continued ingredients. Yeah, we use bay leaf to equally add taste to the, jollof rice. We use crayfish. I don't know if you know crayfish. It's something like a tiny fish, that we sometimes blend together with tomatoes, to add to our meals. Yeah, then instructions on how to prepare jollof rice. Wow, the first thing you need to do is to blend the pepper, tomatoes, and sliced onions. You then go ahead to boil the blended tomatoes and pepper in an empty pot to remove the excess liquid. Yeah, they are often excess liquid because you need a little water to grind this combination. Talking about onions, tomatoes, and pepper. Yeah, after removing the boiled, you remove the boiled tomatoes and start preparing. After removing the water, as a result of boiling, you now remove the boiled tomatoes and start preparing your food. Yeah, you go straight and set your cooker, to burn at a minimum of, at a minimum rate. Add 4 tablespoons of oil and butter, as I earlier mentioned, in an empty medium-sized pot and place it on the cooker. Yeah, instruction continued. So you allow this oil together with butter to heat for a little while. Then you can add your sliced onions, because yeah, you would need a little sliced onions, to fry this ingredient with. So you will need to allow the onions to heat for about 3 to 5 minutes. The next thing is for you to add your tomatoes paste in the pot with the onions and for those that would like to add ginger, yeah, sometimes, people add ginger just to give it a bit of pepperish taste, ginger and garlic. So if you're one person who sort of likes ginger and garlic, you can add it to this tomato paste. And then you allowed the tomatoes to fry for a while with the onions while you stir the paste consistently, gradually, to prevent it from burning. Yeah, and after allowing the mixture to fry for a total of 5 minutes or so, you can go on to add your blended boiled tomatoes, and pepper. This might generally take about 10 to 20 minutes, depending on the quantity of water in the sauce. Yeah, you're adding, this mixture of fried, you're adding these mixtures together so that they can actually mix up well, such that by the time you add your rice, the rice will absorb every part of the ingredient. Then go ahead to add the dried thyme, the curry, the Maggi, and whatever ingredients that you have on ground that will give it taste. Yeah, we generally use, stock, like your chicken. When you boil chicken, the stock that you extract from the boiled chicken, it greatly adds taste to, this kind of dish. Yeah, while you're waiting for, the whole sauce to cook, you can then begin to wash your rice. Yeah, you just take your rice, like the 4 cups, as earlier mentioned, you wash it and then just add, on the fried and cooked sauce. Then you wait, after which, the stuff might have, cooked together and well mixed together. You can go on to add the rice to the pot. I think you would also need to, you add that sauce. Sorry, let me take it again. Ensure that the sauce in the pot is at a level together with the rice. Yeah, your sauce in the pot must be together with, the rice. There should be enough sauce to cover the rice so as to have it properly and well cooked. And once that is done, you can add 2 teaspoons of butter, 2 teaspoons of butter to cover the pot and allow the rice to boil for about 30 minutes. Yeah, instruction continue. You can occasionally, check on this rice to see if the water you've added to it is enough or sufficient to cook it or not. If it's not enough, you just add a little water to it. And once the rice is well dried, once you discover the rice that, was at the same level with the water in the sauce is dried, you can turn the rice, outside, like in a clean plate or in a clean, pot, and you can serve, this cooked rice together with carrots, fried beef, chicken, plantain, or even vegetable salad. Thank you.
This is Chinese hot pot. My name is Luna and I come CS University. My major is law. And I think in the world I have 2 things make me happen, books and movies. The Chinese civilization has gone thousands of years. Hot pot is an important traditional food of China. Because it is very easy cooking, draining the tongue, and soon dynasty hot pot began to popular, but only in very famous people or rich people in their home have hot pot. But now everyone can enjoy this delicious food. And in China, within West region, each region has their own way eat hot pot. And this results in a very rich very rich of hot pot, which cannot only different region. Okay, let's enjoy a video. So it's a very happy time. Their family at the table and enjoy this happy time. And the first in hot pot, we have very important part is hot pot soup. In different in different regions, they have different parts. Just like Sichuan or Chongqing, they have spicy soup. But for myself, I like tomato soup. So to have a different soup, we have different pot like this. They have 2 different different soup, just like a tomato or clear soup. Yeah, this pot they have 9 different soup. Yeah, and another thing is we have different dipping sauce. So in this picture we have 20 different sauce. When we enjoy hot pot, we can match them together. And for myself, just like this small picture, this my dip. In there have some sesame sauce and soy sauce and some another things, and I make them together and very delicious. This is just for myself, like it. And side delicious, and we have vegetables or meat. We have very important things. We have to prepare fresh vegetables and meat to enjoy our food. I think enjoy hot pot have 2 important things. First is we must prepare fresh ingredient, and the second is to master the heart, because this food are in the pot, the time too long, food will lose yummy. Too short, it will it's not too short. The time it didn't enough, it will unhealthy for our body.
So we have a lot of common recipes, slight differences with all the other Balkan countries. So, for example, we have similarities with Turkey, we have similarities with Bulgaria, some with Russia as well, even though Russia is not in the Balkan area. But just, I guess, it's because Romania has been, throughout history, occupied by various nations, let's say. And so one of the most traditional ones that you can, or so this type of food you can only find, or like the way it's prepared and how you see it in the picture, you can only find it in Romania, but in Turkey, for example, or in the Arab countries, you can find something similar under the name of kebab, but they're kind of presenting it in a different way. So basically what we call them Mitch. Mitch in Romanian is just the word symbol, like meaning small. Just to say that these skinless sausages, you can also call them like that, are kind of like a fist long. Usually it's served with mustard, different types of mustard, for the sourness of mustard. And we usually eat this in the summer, and we drink a lot of beer on the side with that. What's really interesting about this type of dish is that it's usually and most of the times the meat is mixed. So you would find beef and lamb mixed together, or lamb and pork mixed together. There are people who are actually using either only beef, either only lamb, or only pork, but most of the times it's mixed, and then the taste is a lot better. And then it's very, very garlicky as well. So whoever has eaten this type of foods, they could feel the strong taste of garlic. But it's not a bad taste. It's actually very tasty. Romanians eat a lot of garlic, so just so you know. So what you can see on the screen is what we call, in Romanian, it's called ciorba de burtă. It's made out of cow's stomach. So that's the type of meat that you see in the plate there. And it's kind of a soup that you may, well, I'm not really sure what's the recipe. My father cooks this quite a lot, and it's very, very tasty. And we usually add cream and vinegar to give it a soury taste, because otherwise that cow stomach can be quite can feel quite greasy and quite heavy. So usually we add this So for those of you who are not used to eating any type of intestines, you might not be quite convinced by this dish, but it's actually very tasty. Another one that we have is called sarmale, and what it is just minced meat, usually pork. Sometimes some people use lamb as well, but mostly pork. And it's wrapped in cabbage leaves and boiled, or sometimes some people actually bake it. So they put it in a type of I wouldn't necessarily call it bowl, but it's a covered vessel that you put in the oven. But in that vessel, you already have kind of, so it's boiling in the oven, kind of. And we usually eat it with either cream on top or sour, it's kind of like pickled cabbage or anyway, any type of pickles. And this is actually, we say it's a traditional Romanian dish, but it's actually, you can find this recipe or similar, or variations of the recipe in Turkey as well. But then Turkish people don't use cabbage leaves, they use grapevine leaves. Or you can also find it in Bulgaria. Russians, I think, have a similar, I think Russian people use cabbage leaves. But anyway, you can find this recipe across the whole Balkan area. You can find it also in Greece, for example. So that's why I was saying that we tend to say traditional food, but then we are a kind of a hot pot in the Balkan area. This is something that you would mostly find in Romania. We call it mamaliga, but at the same time, you can also find it in Italy under the name of polenta. It might be done differently in Italy, but anyway, so we say that it's a traditional Romanian dish, but it's not so atypical to find it in other countries as well. And it's actually a type of staple food. So we usually, as staple food in Romania, we eat bread, all sorts of bread. But sometimes we also, or like most of the times, this originates in the rural areas actually, from the rural areas, and it was because it's super easy to make. You boil water, you put when the water starts boiling, you add a bit of salt, and then you start pouring the corn flour, and then you start stirring, and then you stir until it becomes a very thick paste, right? And then one you keep boiling so that the corn flour um, can 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 be boiled, and then you turn, because it's becoming very thick, you need to kind of turn the pot around, and then you put it on top of, you can see in the image, it's kind of like a wooden, I would not know how to call this, but then you turn the pot down, and then the mamaliga will fall down, and so you start just eating out of it. So we usually eat it with white cheese, and you might not be so familiar with white cheese. You might be familiar more with feta cheese, for example, which is the Greek one. But we also, in Romania, we eat a lot of white cheese. It's slightly different than feta cheese. It's still equally salty, but the texture is different. You might be used to more with the yellow cheese, which is much more popular. But we don't eat that much yellow cheese, more white cheese. And the white cheese can be made either out of cow milk or goat milk, sheep milk, so different, any type of milk can be turned into white cheese. And some dessert as well. This is actually, you can understand it. So it's called papanash, but you can understand it as donuts. So the dough is actually dough for donuts. And the topping is made of cream. So what you see, the white thing that you see on top is actual cream. And then different types of fruit jam. Depending on what fruit jam you like, you can add on top, and it's very tasty, but it's very very heavy. So if you've eaten one, then you're kind of full for the whole day. But what is something very interesting, and I would be curious whether that's the same in your own countries. Romanians, we always say that we have two stomachs. One is for food and one is for dessert. So no matter how full you are with food, there's always room for dessert. So this is something that we believe in Romania, and we actually act accordingly. So very often you will have people eating dessert after a meal, just to kind of crave that, just to satisfy that crave for something sweet. So yeah, this is about all about Romanian foods.